The morning of my graduation felt like the finish line of a marathon I had been running my entire life. I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting the collar of my shirt with trembling fingers, staring at someone who looked confident but felt fragile inside. This was supposed to be my day. 4 years of exhaustion, sacrifice, and quiet persistence had led to this moment. More than a degree, this ceremony represented my worth, proof that I was ready to step into the future I had been promised since childhood. The family business. Ever since I was 16, I had worked there after school, on weekends, during holidays. I learned inventory before I learned freedom. While my friends went on trips, I stayed back to help with accounts, clients, and suppliers. My parents used to say, "This will all be yours someday." Those words carried me through every tired night. At the graduation hall, my parents sat in the front row. My mother waved when she saw me, her smile neat and controlled. My father nodded, proud but distant. My sister sat beside them, scrolling through her phone, uninterested. She had never worked a full month at the business. She had chosen a different path, one far from responsibility. When my name was called, applause filled the room. I walked across the stage, my heart pounding, expecting, hoping that when I looked at my parents, I would see pride. Instead, my mother leaned toward my father and whispered something. He nodded. That should have been my first warning. After the ceremony, while other families laughed and hugged, my mother approached me and said softly, "We'll celebrate later. Come home with us. We need to talk." The words felt heavy, but I brushed the unease aside. Maybe they were planning something special. Maybe this was when everything would finally be acknowledged. The drive home was quiet, too quiet. At dinner, my favorite dishes were laid out, untouched. My sister sat across from me, oddly calm, her lips curled into a faint smile I didn't understand. My father cleared his throat, folding his hands on the table like he was about to discuss quarterly profits. "We've made an important decision," he said. I straightened in my chair. This was it. "We're officially transferring the family business." He continued. My heart leapt when I asked, unable to hide my excitement. My mother finally looked at me then, but her eyes were cold, already distant. "To your sister." The words landed slowly, cruelly, like glass shattering one piece at a time. I laughed, a soft, disbelieving sound. "That's not funny," I said. "You mean temporarily, or—" "No," my mother interrupted, completely. The room began to spin. "But I've been preparing for this my whole life," I whispered. "You told me." "You're too sensitive," she snapped. "This isn't about feelings. Your sister is more practical." I turned to my sister, waiting for her to say something. Anything. She didn't meet my eyes. "I studied business for this," I said, my voice cracking. "I turned down offers. I stayed here for you." My mother sighed, annoyed, like I was a problem she didn't want to deal with. "You'll understand someday," she said. "Not everything is meant for you." Something inside me broke quietly. All the years of loyalty, all the nights I stayed late, all the belief that love was earned through sacrifice, none of it mattered. I stood up from the table, my legs shaking. No one stopped me. No one apologized. That night, as I packed my bags, I realized something terrifying and freeing at the same time. I had just graduated not only from college, but from the illusion that I was ever truly chosen. And I didn't know yet that this betrayal would become the beginning of everything. I left before sunrise. The house was still asleep, wrapped in the kind of quiet that felt heavier than noise. I paused at the doorway one last time, my suitcase by my side, waiting foolishly for someone to stop me, for my mother to come running down the stairs, for my father to clear his throat and tell me this was all a misunderstanding. Nothing happened. I placed my key on the kitchen counter, right beside the framed photo of our family taken years ago, when smiles still meant something. Then I walked out, closing the door without a sound. The first weeks were brutal. I rented a tiny room with peeling paint and a window that barely let in sunlight. My mattress rested directly on the floor. At night, the silence screamed. I replayed my mother's words over and over. "You'll understand someday," trying to find logic where there was only rejection. I worked anywhere that would take me. Cafes in the morning, warehouses at night. My degree felt useless at first, a piece of paper mocking me from inside my bag. I watched other graduates move forward with support, while I learned how to survive alone. The hardest part wasn't the exhaustion. It was the absence, no calls, no messages, no concern. Weeks turned into months and the truth settled in slowly. My disappearance hadn't caused a ripple in their lives. Through social media, I watched my sister step into the role that had been meant for me. She posted smiling photos in the office I once managed, sitting at my old desk, wearing confidence I had earned but never been given. My parents looked proud. I stopped checking after that. One night, after a double shift, I collapsed onto my mattress and cried until my chest hurt. I wasn't crying for the business anymore. I was crying for the child in me, who believed love was fair. For the version of myself who stayed loyal, thinking it would be rewarded. That was the night something changed. I stopped waiting. I updated my resume, listing every skill I had learned in silence operations, negotiation, crisis management. I reached out to contacts I had once helped through the family business, swallowing my pride and asking for opportunities instead of permission. Rejection came first, then small chances, an assistant role, a short contract, long hours with little recognition again. But this time it was different. Every step forward belonged to me. No promises tied to blood, no approval required. I learned to be quiet in a new way, not broken, but focused. Years passed like that. I moved into a better place. Bought furniture instead of living out of a suitcase. Built routines that didn't revolve around anyone else's expectations. Slowly, the pain dulled, not because it disappeared, but because it stopped defining me. I heard nothing from my parents. Until one afternoon, an unfamiliar number flashed on my phone. I stared at it for a long time before answering. My mother's voice sounded older, softer, almost uncertain. "We heard you're doing well," she said, as if she hadn't abandoned me. "We thought maybe we should talk." I closed my eyes. The silence I had carried for years suddenly felt like power. "I'm busy," I replied calmly. "You can email." I hung up before she could say more. For the first time, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. I didn't know it yet, but the life I was building in quiet determination would soon stand taller than the legacy they chose without me. And when our paths crossed again, I wouldn't be the one begging to be seen. I would be the one deciding who deserved access to me. Success didn't arrive all at once. It came in fragments, small victories stacked on top of long nights, each one built with patience I learned the hard way. By the time my name started carrying weight in the industry, I barely recognized the person I used to be. The one who waited for approval. The one who thought loyalty guaranteed love. I had built my own company from nothing but experience and refusal to fail. No inherited clients, no family name, just strategy, ethics, and an understanding of people my parents had underestimated. Where their business relied on control, mine thrived on trust. The first time I saw my company's logo on a building, I sat in my car and cried. Not out of pain, but relief. I had proven something to myself. I didn't need their validation to be valuable. That's when the rumors started. Suppliers whispered about late payments. Employees complained about mismanagement. Contracts my family's company once dominated began quietly slipping away. I didn't celebrate. I didn't gloat. I simply listened, detached, like someone hearing news about strangers. One evening, an old supplier I trusted asked to meet me. "They're drowning," he said bluntly. "Your sister doesn't understand the foundation you built. She's making decisions based on ego, not structure." I nodded. I already knew. Their downfall wasn't because they gave the business to her. It was because they erased the person who understood it. A month later, I attended an industry conference. As I stepped onto the floor, conversations paused. People turned, some smiled, some whispered. I was no longer invisible, and then I saw them. My parents stood near a booth, their posture tense, their confidence worn thin. My sister hovered beside them, tapping her heel nervously. For a moment, our eyes met across the room. Recognition flickered on my mother's face, followed by something close to regret. She approached me slowly, like someone afraid I might disappear. "You've done well," she said. "I waited. We could use your insight." My father added, "Just a conversation. I studied them, the same people who once told me I'd understand being discarded. Now they stood in front of me, unsure, exposed. I understand now," I replied quietly, perfectly. Their company was collapsing under pressure they never prepared for. Clients were leaving. Employees were restless. The foundation I once held together had cracked without me. Still, I didn't feel anger. I felt clarity. I agreed to meet not as their child, but as a professional. We sat across a polished table days later, tension thick in the air. They spoke carefully, humbly, offering vague apologies wrapped in desperation. I listened, took notes, asked hard questions, then I laid out the truth. "I can help stabilize things," I said, "but I won't save what doesn't deserve saving, and I won't step into a role you stripped from me." My sister looked down. My mother swallowed hard. This wasn't revenge, this was balance. I walked out of that meeting with my spine straight and my head high. For the first time, the power dynamic had shifted completely. They needed me more than I ever needed them. And as I returned to my office, sunlight pouring through the glass walls bearing my name, I realized something beautiful. I hadn't risen to prove them wrong. I had risen because I refused to stay broken, and the higher I climbed, the clearer it became. Some betrayals don't destroy you. They refine you. I agreed to help, but only on my terms, not as their child, not as the forgotten backup plan. As a consultant with clear boundaries and a contract they couldn't manipulate, when my lawyer sent over the agreement, my mother called immediately, her voice trembling between pride and fear. "You've changed," she said. "Yes," I replied. I had to. Walking back into the old office felt like stepping into a memory that no longer belonged to me. The walls were the same, the desks familiar, but the energy was fractured. Employees avoided my parents' eyes. They nodded at me with a respect I had never been given before. I didn't take my old desk, I didn't need it. Over weeks, I rebuilt what I could, streamlining operations, restoring trust with suppliers, fixing the cracks my sister never learned to see. I spoke firmly but fairly. I listened, I led without shouting, and slowly things stabilized. One evening, after everyone had left, my mother stood by the window, watching the city lights. "I thought choosing your sister would keep the family together," she said quietly. I didn't answer right away. "You didn't choose her," I finally said. "You chose control, and you lost me in the process." Her shoulders slumped. "I was wrong," she whispered. "I didn't see you. That was the closest thing to an apology I would ever get." I accepted it, not because it erased the pain, but because I no longer needed it to heal. My sister approached me days later, eyes red, voice unsteady. "I was afraid of you," she admitted. "You made it look easy. I thought taking your place would make me enough." I saw her then not as my rival, but as another product of the same pressure that broke me. "This was never about replacing me," I said gently. "It was about finding yourself without stealing someone else's life." When my contract ended, I didn't stay. I walked away again, this time whole. The company survived, but it was no longer my responsibility. I returned to my own office, my own team, my own name etched into glass and earned through resilience. My parents still call occasionally. The conversations are polite, careful, the distance remains, and that's okay. Because the sweetest revenge wasn't watching them struggle. It was watching myself thrive. I no longer crave their approval. I no longer measure my worth by what they denied me. I built a life where love is chosen, not assigned by blood or obligation. On the anniversary of my graduation, I visited my office alone. I stood by the window, remembering the version of myself who walked out with a suitcase and a broken heart. "I understand now," I whispered to the reflection staring back at me, not their words, mine. I understood that betrayal didn't end my story. It redirected it. That being overlooked didn't make me invisible. And that sometimes the most powerful revenge is living so fully that the past loses its power over you. I turned off the lights and walked forward unburdened, undefeated, and finally free.